thanks for joining us on this latest episode of the Conscious Finance podcast. I'm really pleased to be joined today by Richard Ring. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you.
And Richard has a really impressive background. So you started out in the Big Four, I believe.
That's right.
PwC.
Yeah, or Coopers as was.
As it was, yeah. Then moved into Hanson Aggregates briefly.
Yeah, that's right. I did secondment out to NatWest Bank whilst with Coopers for about 18 months. So I did quite a lot of banking and M&A there.
Oh, great.
Then, yeah, you're right, Hanson Aggregates for a while.
Yeah, and then into RAC.
Then to RAC, sort of in my late 20s. I was there, Group FC, for a while when they were owned by Lex, so sort of listed business.
Yeah.
And then, 22 years ago, I joined little old as was, Apetito. So
amazing,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's awesome to see your journey from where you were then to now CFO of Apetito, which is the growth journey's been quite.
Yeah, it's been spectacular. I mean that sort of 40 odd million turnover business at the time is now closer to 300 million now, and in addition to that, we've bought and started greenfield in the US and in Canada.
Wow.
And I suppose more importantly, I mean, we've grown profitability a lot. We were sort of trading at 3-4 million pre-tax, and we're now over 40 million pre-tax this year. But more importantly than that, we've created a really cracking business that actually has got a very strong social purpose. And I suppose what I love about this job, the Apetito job, more than any other job I've done, is the fact that I'm combining sort of great financial and economic success with really strong sort of social purpose, and that's a pretty compelling combination.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people will resonate with your journey and your path, because there are a number of people out there that start life in the Big Four or in a large corporate organisations, and then they sometimes sort of accidentally fall into more purpose-driven organisations, and then they thrive like you have, because maybe the purpose is aligned, and the fulfilment then gets much improved, and when you're working in a place where your passion is aligned, you're naturally going to perform better, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it's not for absolutely everyone. I think what you've got there is a real commitment to long term, but what goes with that is actually quite a family feel and a very strong purpose-driven organisation, and that's not actually for everyone, which is also fine. And what I say is it's either 18 months or 18 years. It tends to be one or the other, and not a lot in between. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I'd love to get into that a little bit in a moment, but first, what's your story, Richard? Where did you grow up? How did you get into finance? What led you down this path?
Well, I grew up really in Plymouth. I moved around a hell of a lot. My father was a doctor, so moved around a lot. I'm actually the black sheep. I'm the only non-medic in my family.
Oh, wow.
Almost without exception. So I felt that I didn't fancy the competition of being a medic, so I thought I'd opt for something else. But what I was good at, the only thing, to be honest, I was good at was languages. So I studied German and French at Bath in combination with sort of arts and literature. So I lived in Germany, and I had a real passion, and still do have a real passion for languages and for culture and for art and literature. But I got to the end of my third year university, my year abroad, where I was teaching in southern Germany, and I actually thought, I'm not convinced this is going to make for a great career. So at that point, I was actually really looking for something to sort of add on to my languages capability, whether that was going to be law or accountancy or whatever. And I chose accountancy.
Was there a reason for that?
Solely because my grandfather, who was also a non-medical, actually on my mother's side, had been an accountant, and it probably wasn't so much, if I'm honest, the accountancy that attracted me, but I really loved him as a person, as an individual.
That's nice. So a real role model for you.
Yeah, he was a role model. His style approach is he very gentle individual, and I thought, well, that's a guy I'd like to aspire to be like. So
You must have
applied to all the
lucked out,
schemes.
because you clearly must have an affinity to numbers to have done so well.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it was, if I'm honest, not completely my strong suit. I didn't do A-level maths. I suspect nowadays I may struggle to get into the Big Four without A-level maths. I don't know that for a fact, by the way, but it's not my strong suit, and probably also being a technical accountant isn't now my strong suit either. But I always thought that the niching of German plus the accountancy was quite a nice place to be. And I when I talk to many people, I try and advise them to find ways to niche themselves slightly, because it's a very challenging employment market for young people at the moment. And one of their challenges is, how do they differentiate themselves in the market? And actually, I think finding an angle like that is quite interesting. And it really paid off, because when I applied to Apetito, the requirement was for a fluent German speaker.
Wow.
Now, there aren't a ton of fluent German speakers who are qualified accountants with the requisite skills. So
No.
I'm not saying I was a sample of one, but I was nicely niched, and it really cut the competition down.
That's great advice, actually, because I think, there's a lot of people out there just wondering, how do I reach those dizzy heights of FD or CFO, and how can I get there? And for those that maybe don't have languages but want to find another path or niche, what advice would you give your younger self now, I guess, in the context of what the future of finance looks like?
I suppose the question I'd be asking myself is, what makes me different? And then, having identified that, I'd continue to work on that and to drive that forward. I think the other thing I would actively seek out is really challenging opportunities. And the times when I've grown the most are when I've been wildly out of my comfort zone. And I can think of a role I particularly did with NatWest. I was seconded from PwC into NatWest for 18 months, and I arrived on day one, and I thought, I ain't got a clue what I'm doing here. Seriously, I was wildly out of my depth. But that job was the best job I ever did, because I spent 18 months, of which the first 7 or 8, I was like, what on earth am I doing here? But then my growth journey continued, and I came out 18 months later with effectively the equivalent of 4 or 5 years worth of experience. So I, again, quite frequently talk to people about putting themselves out of their comfort zone. And I've actually been taken on someone in the last week internally, an internal promotion, and this guy, he's a brilliant guy. He's got great traits and characteristics. He's underqualified for the job he's taking, and he said, "Oh, I'm a bit nervous. Am I good enough?" And I said, "Absolutely, you're good enough. You're bright enough. You've got the relationship skills. Yes, it's a stretch, but put yourself in there, and you will learn, and you will develop." And I think that's what I'd really encourage people to do. Get yourself out of your comfort zone, and you'll learn.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's quite a common theme, actually, on this podcast, and because a lot of the guests are quite successful people, they've found their path, whichever industry or sector or background they've got, they've tended to sort of push themselves out of that comfort zone. And I always say nobody grows in the comfy chair. And I think it's so true, isn't it? In terms of if you just seek the easy path, then how are you ever going to really develop or learn? But I think it's finding that confidence internally to be able to be brave enough to take that leap. Because I think, especially in society today, self-belief and self-confidence is something some people can really struggle with.
I think you absolutely need it, as an innate characteristic, but you also need, role models and leaders who will encourage you to take those steps and take that brave step and give you the confidence, and that's a key role of leadership as well. Definitely.
Would you give anyone out there advice on how they could find that confidence intrinsically without their leader, if they haven't got a great leader at the moment?
I think probably what I've done in the past certainly is to think about successes I've had and think about the times that it's gone wrong. And actually the reality is the times it's been successful and worked out outweigh massively the times it's gone wrong. Of course it goes wrong periodically. That's just the way it is. But actually, when you look back on your career, your experiences and your life with some perspective, then actually you'll see that on the whole you've been successful in life. And actually, also, what's the worst that can happen?
Exactly. I think it's so true. The first time you do anything, you're going to be pretty rubbish at it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I made me think when I was training for the half marathon recently. Mm-hmm. Before COVID, I'd never gone on a run voluntarily before.
Yeah.
Played a bit of rugby in union, what have you, but never went on a run. So when I first went out and tried to start running, I couldn't really run for much longer than 2 minutes at a go. Yeah. And I thought, how am I ever going to achieve that? But then the next time I could do 3 minutes, and then the next time I could do 5 minutes, and you work your way up until running 2 hours in one go. That's like anything in life, isn't it?
That was probably more of a mental block than a physical block that stopped you at 2 minutes.
Yeah.
That's the reality. Yeah. All our bodies can carry on. It's our minds that take over.
That's really true.
You know, once you've done your 2 minutes or your 3 minutes, you thought, well, that's in the bag. I can now do 5 minutes.
It's so true, actually, because then even now, you know, if I haven't gone on a run for a month or so, and I just go and do a 5K or a 10K. Even if I was feeling a bit less fit than before, mentally, I've done this before, so I know I can do it. So you push yourself, and it's the same in professional life, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been here before. I can do it. You've got the confidence, and you pull the tools out your tool bag. You know, right, that's the set I'm going to deploy to tackle this particular problem.
It's just taking that first step, isn't it?
Yeah,
most of the time. So, moving on then to Apetito itself, because I think there's an awful lot we can explore in terms of the organisation, but just in simple terms, what do Apetito do?
So Apetito, a food manufacturing and distribution business, very much focused on nutritional. So we're not about sort of, you know, flogging lasagna to Tesco's or something like that. So it's all about nutritional quality food. And I guess our overarching ambition is to look after the most vulnerable in society. And what that means in reality is that most of our markets are vulnerable markets. So the elderly living at home, typically, but not exclusively, on their own. Patients in hospitals. We supply 600 or so care homes. So there's a real theme that runs through this. And when you're supplying those markets, you have to be selling a product that's sort of dietetically balanced, that's nutritional, and in many cases is quite specialised. So if you're a renal patient in a hospital, just to take an example, you might need a low potassium meal coming out of hospital. Well, that's not something you can sort of pop down to the shops and get. That requires a specialist manufacturer and producer. Dysphagic products, people who've perhaps had a stroke or suffered with a cancer, really struggle with swallowing. We have a huge range of foods for which we've actually won a Queen's Award for enterprise in the past. That caters for people who can't swallow, and they enable them to eat with dignity in the way that they wouldn't otherwise be able to.
Yeah, and there's such purpose behind that. I think when it's done in the right way, which it seems to be with Apetito, where it's not a race to make the most margin possible and decrease the quality of the food. It's like, right, let's create something that actually is going to help these people recover or help give them the nutrition they need in their older age to live longer. So that's a clear purpose there. But I think when we spoke before, you described also then the people in the organisation seem to really go above and beyond for their customers as well. Could you share that with the audience? So how do you get your teams and employees to really sort of rally behind that purpose?
I guess what starts with a common understanding of what the mission of the business is, and our business is about making a real difference to vulnerable people, and that's what you can't do is sort of dream that up one week and go, right, okay, what we're going to do is this. What we've focused on that for about 15 years now. So the first thing is you've got to really mean it, and you've got to behave consistently. So people won't follow you if you're suddenly sort of switching strategy or switching approach. We have the benefit of having spent 15 years solely talking about making a real difference to our vulnerable people. So that's the starting point. Consistency and authenticity. So your teams will judge you. As soon as you do something as inconsistent with your objective, everyone will notice it, and all that good work that you've done will sort of go out of the window. So first and foremost, identify the higher cause, let's call it of the business.
Yeah.
Identify that and act in a way that is consistent with that, and communicate that across your business. And we've got around about 88 to 90% of our team would say that Apetito makes a real difference. And I think that's pretty, we've got probably about 2,000 people or so in the UK, and wow. I think that's pretty strong stats. And our job as leaders is to ensure that we create and facilitate that connection between our customers and our teams, whether they're working in the factory environment, distributing the food, or in finance, or wherever it may be.
Because again, what stood out for me is how you mentioned with, for example, when you're dropping off the meals on wheels, excuse the term, you probably don't like that term, but when you're dropping off the meals to the elderly customers in their homes, a lot of organisations might just work on KPIs, right, in and out within no more than 2 minutes, on to the next one, because this is time costs money. Yeah. And it seems that you approach it quite differently.
I'd say we're pretty much the polar opposite of that. So it's a relationship business. So we're talking about Wiltshire Farm Foods here, which is delivery of food to the door of consumers. We have no KPIs on how long our people are allowed on the phones. We've got 60-odd depots, 60 to 70 depots around the UK, and that's deliberate. We could easily have a national call centre. We don't want a national call centre because we want to create relationships between the team in, let's say, Halifax with Betty, who orders on the Monday morning. We want Bill, the driver, to be the same driver that turns up this Monday as turned up last Monday. And if you're sort of driving the KPIs through really, really hard, you won't create that relationship, and you won't create that loyalty either in your team, because that's really, that's massively a really important part of team engagement, but also from a customer loyalty and retention perspective, you won't achieve those perspectives. Now, of course, there's a big place. We are running a business at the end of the day as well, but those objectives of driving profitability and doing the right thing and forming relationships aren't mutually exclusive.
Yeah, because that's interesting, because you wouldn't naturally be able to see the commercial value of that until you've done it for a period of time. So, and a lot of organisations out there just might think, faster, better, cheaper, let's just get it out and get it done.
I think that's a really important point, and what I would say is that's difficult to do fast, because consistency matters. So our business has all been about long-term value creation, and actually some of these, let's call them investment decisions, spend lots of time with the customers, form relationships, pay the real living wage. Those aren't matters and investments that sort of pay off in the next year or two. You're talking about a 10 to 15 year investment, but what you need is, in our case, family owners and family backers who are committed to long-term value creation, and long-term means over 15, 20, 25 years. And when I talk to them about investments, particularly in capacity and land, their question to us is, will it do for 30 to 50 years? That's their question, and that I think that's a really interesting perspective on how to create value in the long term.
It is, and I think that's an issue that exists in our society as a whole. That short-termism.
Yeah,
and I think whether it's the president of the United States to our prime minister, 4-year term, they're sort of only focused on the popularity contest and trying to do as much as they can in those 4 years to please their voters rather than what will actually be best for our country. I think the same applies to a CEO. In a lot of businesses, the average tenure is 3-5 years. Yeah. So again, it's like, right, parachute in, make a load of change, try and make my mark, and then off to the next one. So having come from a business that's much more long-term value, long-term thinking, what advice would you give CEOs or CFOs in a business that maybe doesn't think in that way?
I suppose fundamentally what we always seek to do and what I'd advocate is try and do the right thing. And I think you need to sort of consult your inner self and indeed your colleagues and say, okay, we've got a tricky decision here. Are we doing the right thing? And in our case, we're quite lucky because we got an owner who I met actually last week. And what I actually said to him is when I hit a tricky decision with Paul, our CEO, we often sit down together and we say, well, what would Wolfgang want us to do here? And that's a really important guiding light. So the question is, how can you replicate, the Wolfgang in your business, the person you can face in the mirror and say, what's the right thing to do for this business, for the people, for the long term?
Yeah, and I think it's proven as well that purpose-driven businesses generally are more profitable and grow faster than ones that aren't. Yeah. Because I think all the things you've mentioned there around the fact that people believe in it, the employee engagement is really high, the talent attraction and retention is better, but then the customers really resonate with it and the loyalty that you've described there. Do you have any sort of comparisons on the way that you do things versus maybe your competitors in terms of your performance and what the value has been for you by behaving in that way? Of much more that sort of long-term thinking?
I mean, perhaps not the competitors, but I can think back to other roles I've been in businesses I've been in, and the type of decisions we take at Apetito are just on a completely different time frame, and they pay back over time. As far as somebody leaves your organisation, the way you treat them when they leave, they will speak to 5, 6, 10 other people and say, well, when I left, Richard wished me all the best. He said if I wanted to come back, then we can have a conversation. Anything from that to the way we treat people, the way we stand by our ethics, both towards our employees but also throughout our supply chain. Becomes sort of incredibly important. Yeah,
I think what is really impressive is how quickly you've grown. I guess since you've been there, 30 million to now 260 something like that.
Yeah,
2,000
just in the UK.
Just in the UK, 2,000 employees. Yeah. Yet even down to the delivery drivers and the people dropping off the meals and all the way through to people on the factory floor. They seem to be really living your values. How do you achieve that? Because I think a lot of businesses struggle with even when they get beyond 25 people to make sure those values really are lived and breathed within the culture of the team. How do you achieve that with 2,000?
I suppose I think stability really counts actually. So when you've got a leadership and a team that have been around for a while, then it really helps because they can see the consistency of message and can see that it's not just words. There is actually something that sort of sits behind the words. But what I said earlier is it's about trying to connect the people, for example, on the factory floor with the customer base. So through our sort of induction and reinduction processes, we would seek to close that gap together. Now, it's actually pretty easy with the frontline people because they're living and breathing it day in, day out.
That's true.
We would encourage, for example, our drivers to sort of change light bulbs, do the post for people, put stamps on, all that sort of thing. So as soon as we're doing that, we are living by our values, and people realise and understand they have licence. And we don't need to say it anymore. It's just accepted. That's the way we run our business. It's a bit more challenging if you're sort of buried in the factory on a night shift and that sort of thing. But we have all company calls. I would say our internal communications are relatively strong. No business is brilliant, and it is tricky, but we're relatively strong. And the other thing we focus quite hard on is the external recognition, because that's an external validation that what you're doing is good. So last week or the week before, we won the King's Award, should I say, for sustainability, which sustainability being all about the sort of the ethics as well as the sort of the ESG sort of agenda. But actually that tells people it's not just sort of Apetito saying, oh, we're doing a great job in sort of ethics and sustainability. It's independently recognised. I suppose our workplace scores, our survey scores are pretty positive as well. So don't get me wrong, we've got issues like any business, and they need to be dealt with. You're never going to crack it all, but you can move the dial in the right direction.
Yeah, and I love that. I think you made a really good point there, actually, because finance and other departments which aren't on the front line can often feel disconnected from the purpose of a business.
Yeah.
So how do you overcome that? How do you sort of bring that together?
I think it's a leadership role first of all, and my leadership role in the case of finance is to ensure, as he does, that Kevin, who runs our finance team, understands that there's a license to get people out there within the business on the front line. That's something we really want to foster and encourage. So if someone says, I want to go out, get out in the van, or do whatever, we want to encourage that, because that again narrows the gap and enables people to really see the sense of purpose within that role. So it's a leadership role. We've got very strong business partnering within our organisation, both across the sort of the operational ends of the business, so manufacturing, distribution, as well as the sort of commercial margin end of things, and that really lends itself to people getting out there with customers, whether they're care homes, hospitals, or individual consumers. So what we try and do is to really leverage that to encourage people to get out there on the front line, and creates a ton of variety as well. So it's much better than being sat in the office or sat at home or whatever it is. It adds a lot of value and variety.
Yeah, and I mean, I was impressed how it seems to happen at all levels. And I hope you don't mind me saying, but you're moving on as CFO shortly?
I am. Yeah, another 6 weeks or so. I'm not counting, honest. But after 22 years, I've decided to move on. Well, actually, I've decided to take a bit of a break. Would be more accurate.
Nice.
It's been an amazing business, an amazing story. By far the best role I've ever had. But actually, it's quite demanding, because we're working US, Canada, as well as the UK. So there's a bit of travel, a lot of time zones, and after 22 years, it's been a fantastic story. We've got some massive projects coming up, so we're about to spend around about £100 million on a new facility in the Trowbridge area. We're also working very heavily on a large logistics related project, and it seemed to be a good time business-wise to hand the reins over to somebody else. And also my daughter is bang in the middle of A-levels. She has a final day of A-level art today. So in a couple of weeks' time, she'll be out of A-levels, off to university. My son's already living in Germany, as it happens, third year of university. So it's a great time in life. I'm young enough to get out and adventure and do some things I want to do. And if I'm bored in a year or two's time, then I'll do something else.
Love that. So what are you going to get up to? What adventures are you going on?
I got quite a lot planned with my wife and my dog, I should say. So first of all, we got a month in the French and Swiss Alps.
Amazing.
So we're walking mainly.
Nice.
And then we got a few weeks initially in Iceland, going around Iceland, and then we're flying over to Greenland, and we're going to sea kayak up the east coast of Greenland, not with the dog.
Wow.
on that one, which just looks amazing, sort of through all the icebergs, and then we got some time on some glaciers, and then we got coming back, see the kids off to university, and then a couple of months in southern France and Spain.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing. And
yeah.
By God, you deserved it after 22
That's what
years.
I said.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I bet you haven't taken more than a 2-week holiday for 22 years.
I did. The first 3 week I did was last summer. So, but other than that, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
I bet your brain's going to wonder what to do with itself.
Yes. Yeah. And the other thing I do, I'm senior independent director of a care home group as well. So I've done 8 years of that. So that stops at the end of June as well. So we got fantastic replacements in place for that job and the vice chair job. So
great. And I mean, going back to the sort of connecting finance to the business, I think even with your replacement as CFO, I really liked how you said that, you know, before they even get started, they've got to do 6 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
So he started on the 1st of May, and he is literally not allowed to touch the day job. So I'm doing the day job. He is, as we speak, picking in -18 meals for customer deliveries, and he's spent virtually all week doing that this week. Next week he is working in the factory. He will be sweeping the floors. He will be working on the lines, because there's a one-time opportunity to really get both to know and understand the business and know and understand the people. And what we find is that those relationships you form in that period are critical going forward, and it really shows the human face. You know, you may be a director of a business and whatever, but you're prepared to sort of sweep the floor. And frankly, if you say to us, I'm not prepared to do that, then you're not the right person for us, by the way.
Yeah. So. No, I like that. And it reminds me, actually, I used to do quite a bit of work with Honda,
right?
Not as purpose driven necessarily as Apetito, but they did the same, all levels regardless. You'd be working on the factory floor, you'd be in, your overalls.
I was rubbish. I got to tell you, I was absolutely miserable. The line kept stopping. There was stuff going everywhere. But actually, it taught me it's a really hard job, and you're standing on your feet for hours and hours a day. So it's physically demanding and actually quite mentally demanding, because you're sort of watching a line go by, and I got real respect for the people who can do that.
I think it's so important, because in finance often, you can just stare at the numbers and think, right, well, we can make a cost cutting there, or we could, why is that not performing to the level it should be?
Yeah.
But if you've actually walked the floors and done the job and seen like the challenges that they face and why it might be like that, not only does it bring every line of that spreadsheet to life in your mind, but also it helps you empathise a little bit more with what actually is going on in the business, surely.
Yeah, it's far too easy to sit from a distance and go, well, they shouldn't be doing X, Y, and Z. Yeah. But, it's a go, look, see type of thing. You can't sort of spend your time driving a desk. I think once you're out there in the operation, understanding the day-to-day demands, you'll get a very different perspective. So I'd say be demanding of your boss or your line manager, and say you want to get out, you want to go and see the operation, because you'll enjoy it, but actually you'll get a real understanding of the practical day-to-day issues.
Yeah, I love that. And funnily enough, I was we were hosting a finance director roundtable yesterday in Bristol. And I think even if a business doesn't have such a great setup with onboarding like Apetito, the finance leader can still take control of bringing finance into the forefront of a business.
Absolutely.
And a client of ours, John, over at Nisbets, had a really great example where, you know, when he joined, there was a clear disconnect, and finance was quite siloed, or felt siloed anyway. And it just a simple change, like with his team, he decided, right, once a month we're going to take the finance team as a team and have a bit of a sort of a lunch and learn type thing where they go and spend a couple of hours with the sales team, just like Q&A, get to know them, have a bit of a laugh. Then they'll go and speak to the guys in the factory. Then they'll go and speak to those, you know, logistics. And I think the knowledge and the engagement has just gone up through the roof. In terms the finance team really understand now. Okay, that's what that means. Okay, I understand it.
I think that's really powerful. Kevin, our head of finance, has a monthly huddle, and there's always a guest. So that might be the head of healthcare, or it might be, you know, you go down to the kitchens and taste the new products. And so we rotate. It might be the head of IT. We sort of rotate it around the whole business, or he rotates it with the team around the whole business. And it's great. And we get great, you know, we probably get sort of 30, 40 attendees at that from the finance team. And it's great, you know. Yeah,
it definitely pays dividends, doesn't it? In terms of the engagement. And yeah, I've seen it with Miele. They do it as well. They get people on the floor, the factory, and understanding it, and the shop fronts as well. I think Turtle Bay do it. They get people behind serving food, and
brilliant.
You know, it's just sort of. I think it's so important in finance to get connected to the business and understand what it means to be part of the operations as well. So yeah, love that. So you touched on the sustainability side of things. And the fact that you've won an award for that is quite interesting. And you know, outside looking in, you think, right, okay, food has a footprint, packaging has a footprint, fleet of vehicles has a footprint. How did you achieve that award?
That's quite a big question. I guess our journey started about sort of 5-6 years ago. We footprinted the whole business, and our business generates about 140,000 tonnes of CO2. And you're right, about 2/3 of that roughly comes from the ingredients we're buying, and then the balance from electricity, and then indeed our own operation. So it starts with understanding, you know, where are we today, and then it moved on to generating some targets. Now, any business can have a 2040 net zero target. That's not what it's about. What we did was set some 2025 targets, some 2030 and 2035 targets, and we had them independently evaluated. So we've got science-based targets, and that meant that we had, because we don't have to wait till 2040, we've got a target, we got hit next year, which means we need to be doing stuff now. So it was a massive call to action. So if I give you just a couple of very simple examples, a lot of the carbon footprint comes in the food. So we've worked with hospital customers to generate low carbon menus. Now that can be as simple, it may sort of sound a bit terrifying, but it can be as simple as taking out a red meat dish and substituting in, I don't know, a turkey or a chicken or something like that. And we've worked, and it's in the public domain, with a number of the big London trusts to successfully take around about 12% out of the carbon footprint of their food just by tweaking their menus. Effectively, it's at zero cost. So that will be and that's in the biggest area of our footprint. In the other areas of things, we signed off last week around about £5 to £6 million investment, which will see our Wiltshire Farm Foods vehicle fleet move to 75% EV.
Amazing.
So we've got about 600 or so vehicles in the fleet, little vehicles with freezers on the back. That technology is relatively new. There's chilled vehicles around, there's conventional ambient vehicles around, but there's not that many frozen vehicles around. So 75% of our fleet will be fully electric.
It's a huge investment.
And then we've covered the business you might expect with solar panels. Actually, we put our last solar panels in 10 years ago. Their performance has really degraded, so we've just signed off about 1.8 million to effectively to redo it and to carpet all the land that we have with solar panels. And we'll be moving up towards 10% of our total electricity by doing that. Great. So there's a very strong sort of sustainability end of things. Social-wise and community-wise, we're big partners of Alzheimer's. So we're a staff foundation. We match all contributions of all staff activities up to about £250. We also do non-match funding, so we will just pay towards sort of local causes where our teams are integrated in club societies, football teams, whatever it may be. But we've given over £250,000 to Alzheimer's over the last few years. Wow. And we allow our teams to go out and work with Alzheimer's and other charities locally. So it's quite broad-based. It's got a big question, but those will be some of them. And I think there were only 29 sustainability awards last week or the week before, and it's actually the fourth, not the fourth King's Award. We've won three Queen's Award, one King's Award, which is a pretty rare place to be. So we're really pleased with that, and it's independent validation that we're doing some good stuff, and always room to improve, but there's some things that go right at least.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think there aren't many organisations with your products and business model that would win a sustainability prize. No. So that's amazing.
I think, the other big thing I meant to say is that we've introduced recyclable packaging. So when we send meals out to our consumers in their homes, we take those trays back and we send them back to the supplier, and they're recycled into new trays, and we're getting return rates of over 40%. Right. And in hospitals, we're getting return rates of close to 60%. So that makes a massive difference to our carbon footprint.
That's close to circular economy.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. It's a really, really big thing, and because we've got a closed loop system, we're in the very rare position of being able to do that.
Brilliant. So with your long-standing tenure of Apetito, you must have seen an awful lot when it comes to growth pains, culture, challenges, crises maybe. Yep. What's the biggest challenge that you faced, and how did you overcome it?
I think we've had two big challenges. One was we had a cyber attack about 18 or so months ago, which...
What did that look like?
It was very painful, and cost us £10+ million, and cost the group substantially as well. Yeah. And what I'd say to that is...
Are you able to share what it looked like in terms of what they were attacking, or was there a ransom?
There was a ransomware attack, that's in the sort of public domain. We deliberately came out and said that we had suffered an attack by criminals who were seeking to extort money from us, because that actually reduces the leverage of the people demanding the ransom. It was very challenging for a number of weeks, and it meant that our systems ground to a halt. We had to make some very difficult decisions on which customers to service and which not to service. And what I would say is that working together as a team becomes really critical at that point, because there are no good decisions. You've just got to make a sort of least impactful decision. And in that instance, we cease serving one of our markets in its entirety. Wow. But what I would say to everyone out there is that we did all the sorts of things you would think a decent business should do with regards to cyber security. We had accreditations, we had monthly cyber groups, we had pen testing, we had all sorts going on. And despite all of that, we had an attack. Now, we recovered from that attack, and we had a very, very strong year last year. But it cost us, as I've told you what it cost us already, and this year's been the first year we've really, really got back on our feet. But far too many people, when I speak to them about it, sort of say, oh yes, we do X, Y, and Z, and are, I would say, relatively complacent in this area. And what one of our advisors told us is, everyone will have a cyber attack. You should assume you will have a cyber attack. The question is, what's going to happen next? So that for me was pretty compelling advice. Identify what your business can't live without in the event that your systems go down, and plan your way around it now before it happens.
Yeah, that's good advice. I think a lot of people, myself included, you just get busy running a business and you don't think about potential crisis or worst case scenario, or you don't like to think about it anyway. But I think, but then things like that are, like cyber security can be seen, right, that's a cost, that's going to be an investment to something might never happen. But it does, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, of course, part of good business, and we've had to, of course, we've invested many millions after this attack, but we've now sought to turn it into a source of competitive advantage, because our positioning in terms of cybersecurity must be far superior to many of our competitors in the market, and that is the only way to view it. You have to make some further investments. Clearly, our cybersecurity is better than it was sort of 20 months ago. So now let's turn that into a source of competitive advantage in the market.
And in those really challenging times, how, as a leader, do you sort of keep morale up in your team?
I think keep calm is the first thing. Sort of think first, panic second. Is what I often tell my kids, actually, and but keeping a calm head, because if the teams can see that people are calm, working together really tightly together consistently day in, day out, then they will garner confidence that you will get through this. And I think the other thing is optimism and an understanding that you will get through this. And of course, Apetito is a very well capitalized business. It might be easier for us, but we knew we would get through this, that these dark days would pass. But when you're right in the middle of it, it's jolly difficult. But keep talking to people, demonstrate leadership, be visible, and have the confidence that we will get through it. And we did. Yeah. We did. But we were having 2 crisis meetings a day with probably 7-8 people at each of them, and we had teams, literally hundreds of people working on the issues throughout our business.
So communication was a big...
Absolutely, yeah.
Keep them informed along the way.
Yeah, so and of course our customers who were being being impacted.
Yeah, definitely. I think that calmness is such a good point.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of leaders can struggle.
Yeah.
I think sometimes in stressful times where performance is down, or when a crisis happens, like a cyber attack, I can only imagine the strain that would put on you and on the leadership team. Is there any tips you would give other leaders in terms of how to retain that calmness for your people? Yeah. Even if in your mind there's
I think the first thing to understand is everyone's looking at you. You might not think everyone is looking at you, but everyone is looking at you and looking at your action. So the way you behave is the way they're going to behave. So it's your job as a leader, whether or not you feel frazzled inside and panicked and all the rest of it, is frankly irrelevant. You know, you're in that leadership role. It's your role to set the tone of the business, because you're also setting the tone for optimism or pessimism. And if you're demonstrating that, you know, we're going to get through this, people will believe that. You'll access discretionary effort, and you will help the people pull the business through. But don't underestimate the fact everybody is looking at you.
Yeah, we talk a lot about, in Core 3, we talk a lot about game face or leader game
absolutely.
face. You know, when the you might have had a terrible morning, and we've all had them, where, you know, little one's not listening to, not putting their shoes on, and you're late, and it's been stressful, and you're driving in, and maybe you're thinking about, business performance this month isn't looking great. It's, you know, how are we going to turn this around? Your head's racing. But then as soon as you get up through the lifts and those lift doors open, it's game face.
Yeah, absolutely. That's leadership.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But I think combine that with a little bit of optimism, like you said, right? Keeping that positivity. Yeah, so important, isn't it?
And never let the basics drop. You know, business is about relationship skills, isn't it? It's about being pleasant to people, and, you know, asking how they are, and you know, as soon as you sort of start to drop some of the, what you might call hygiene factors, some of the basics, that you're not walking around the office having a little chat with people, seeing how they are. As soon as you start to drop those sort of things, you'll drop the people.
Yeah. How do you balance? Because I mean, in recent years, there's been a lot of talk out there with the power of leadership vulnerability, and how, you know, it's important to sometimes show some chinks in your armour to show that you are human after all. How do you balance that sort of game face positivity, calmness, with showing a bit of vulnerability when you need to?
Yeah. I mean, I suppose I focused on always showing my human side. And I would talk probably more than most people to them about people, relationships, how my kids are doing, how much they've irritated me this morning, or what or annoyed me, or whatever it is. And that is in part one, because I'm genuinely interested in people, and people really value that. You haven't just then got a transactional relationship at work. You've got something far more sort of deeply embedded with that. But it also means that you do have license to, you know, sort of say, you know, how are we going to deal with this problem? And probably the way I'd best do it is to get people in the room with me when we've got a particularly challenging issue, and talk it through, and use the power of the team to help resolve some of those issues.
I love that. Well, Richard, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
So many great takeaways in there for the audience. I think the common theme that resonated with me throughout is that often it starts at the top, and the leaders are the ones that set the tone, and that sort of champion the values or the purpose or the mission. They're the ones that can sort of really make sure it becomes authentic and real, so that then the team are engaged, and then they will follow, and then the business and everything else, you know, forms and falls into place. So I think, you know, that's really, really a good takeaway, I think. So thank you for that. And your story is amazing. So what you've achieved. Fun. So hopefully you have an amazing time out, a well-deserved time out. And I look forward to hearing all about it when you get back.
Lovely. Thanks, Leo.
Thanks, Richard.
Cheers.
So thanks for listening to the Conscious Finance podcast. It's really appreciated. And if you can help us increase our impact and inspire others, it would be much appreciated. All we ask is just subscribe to the podcast, give us a like or drop us a comment. It really does help get the word out there and expand our reach, and hopefully inspire others to drive their impact further. Thank you.